everyone, it's Elizabeth from Fern Stickers, and I'm here today to tell the story of Fern Stickers. I realize this is something I've never just sat down and told the whole story before, and I know there's a lot of you that have been around for a long time, but not very many people who have been here since the beginning. So as I am approaching the 3rd anniversary of my shop, I wanted to talk about my story. And I think the biggest takeaway you'll see from this, that success is not always a linear, straight up line, and things can kind of be squiggly, and you adapt and make things work. And I think a lot of times when we hear the story of a small business, it's like, I started with nothing and now I've got this amazing thing and it was a straight line to the top. And instead, the story of my business is trying to figure out how to keep doing something I love and making it work with all the other things I enjoy doing in my life, and realizing that becoming the biggest and the best is not necessarily the end goal for my business. So anyway, let's start in December of 2018. So for Christmas in 2018, I got a silhouette, and I asked for this. My sister had a silhouette. She did such cool things with it. I really wanted to be able to do cool things too. I had gotten my first Erin Condren planner that fall, and I had started making stickers for myself, actually just printing them out and cutting them out with scissors, so very basic. And I also had started buying planner stickers from other shops and really just fell in love with stickering. And what I loved about it was the way you could take sort of a blank slate of a planner, and I started off using an Erin Condren vertical, so it's really very much a blank slate, and how you could use stickers to transform it to make it work for you. And I loved that customization to it, and just really fell in love with using stickers. So I got the silhouette, and over the next few months I started making a lot of stickers for myself. And at that point, we didn't have an inkjet printer. All we had was a laser printer. So I was making laser printer stickers, and which, if you know about laser printers, the toner kind of sits on top of the page, so they feel really different than inkjet printers where the ink goes into the page, and writing on top of them was kind of weird, and the toner kind of chips off. So they weren't the greatest stickers, but I really enjoyed making them and had a lot of fun playing around with Silhouette Studio and learning how to do new things. And so I'd been thinking, like, I could start a sticker shop. Like, I'm decent at making stickers, and it's something I really enjoy. And the weird thing too was kind of, I wanted to make more stickers than I could use personally, because I could only use so many at once. So that summer, I at first just sort of started tentatively playing around with making some making some stickers, some branding, making things more on like sheets that I could sell, because before I would just print out a full like 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and with stickers on it, and it wasn't anything that was like cute. So I started playing around with things, and then I brought it up to my husband. I was like, I've been thinking about this, and I would need a few $100s to start, because I had the silhouette, I had a computer that I could use, but I was gonna need to get an inkjet printer and need to get like initial shipping supplies and get some more sticker paper. So it was gonna be $200 to $300 that I would need to start up. And I do think that's one of the amazing things about a sticker shop, is that is the only, that initial $200 to $300, whatever it is, that is the only money that we personally have invested into the business. Everything else I've been able to reinvest back into the business. So the investment on our part has been very, very low for starting this business. So anyway, I brought it to my husband, and he said, yeah, you might as well give it a try. That sounds great. So June 22nd is when my shop officially opened. I had 4 listings to start with, so it was very, very basic. My sister was my first customer. She bought some stickers from me the first day, but then it was nothing for a while. And I kept working on designing more stickers and adding more stickers. And at that point, I was trying to think about what niche I could fill. And to start off with, I was doing a lot of things that were like academic oriented, because I wasn't seeing a lot of very specific stickers like for college students, for marking different kinds of assignments. So those were a lot of the first stickers that I offered. And about a month after I opened my shop, I got my first sale from a stranger, and that was a huge surprise. It was a great feeling to get that. And after that first sale, it was amazing. Just kind of after that first sale, I started very slowly, consistently getting more business. And again, it was at first a sale every week, and then a sale every few days, and then like one order every day. So I was gradually getting more business, and it built up. And I think in August or September, I started offering my first kits. So I had weekly and monthly kits for Erin Condren at that point. And yeah, and at first too, I didn't have a very consistent release schedule. It was kind of whenever I had time, whenever I wanted to do things. I was making things to order. And so that first fall, my business gradually started to grow. I definitely hit a lot of growing pains though, because there are a lot of things, for those of you who have like used silhouettes a lot or even used printers a lot, when you start doing things at volume, you start having more problems. So I definitely started to run into that, where I started to get into issues where when I was making 1 sheet of stickers a day, it was fine. But when I started to make 10 sheets a day, I started to have issues. So it was definitely a lot of learning curves and trying to figure things out. Yeah, just figuring out what my process was, what my quality standards were, how I was gonna do things. I actually do have like 1 or 2 customers who were some of my very first customers that still buy stickers from me. For the most part though, I think you all have joined on later, because certainly there's things like the quality of my stickers has certainly improved. There was one setting I found that vastly improved the print quality of my stickers. My earlier stickers were not nearly as vibrant. So the early stickers, the quality was definitely not as high, but it was definitely a learning experience. And so that fall was really exciting. I think about things like my first Black Friday. I made over $1,000 of sales in 1 day, which was a really big deal at the time. So in January, I realized this is getting to be a little bit more than I can handle. I need some help. So I wanted to hire somebody, and to start off, I wanted to hire someone like 5 hours a week, very, very part-time, but would help me out a lot. And I didn't really know anyone though, because the weird thing is though, even though I work with college students all day, I don't really want to hire any of them because of conflict of interest. And even if they aren't officially, like, they're not taking my class, technically they can work for me, but if they take a class in the future, it could be a problem. So I just want to avoid any messiness with that. So even though I know all these college students who I work with, and some of them I'd be happy to hire, I didn't really know anyone who I didn't have a professional connection to. So I asked some people at church if they knew anyone that maybe would be looking for a job, who thought would be good. I described what I was looking for, because the thing is too, the kind of employee I was looking for was someone who was a self-starter, who could work without supervision, who was good at problem solving, because there's a lot of stuff like with the silhouettes where things don't work well, and some of them have clear solutions, but sometimes you just kind of have to be intuitive. So someone who's good with technology and could just kind of intuitively solve problems. And one of the women in my small group recommended Danielle. And so she was a college student at church. I had never met her before, but I had her over, I talked to her, and I thought she'd be great. So I hired her starting in January 2020. I should say too, one thing that was really important for me was to pay my employees really well. So that was, even for a 5-hour-a-week job, I was paying her well, so it was attractive, and it was a great fit. She worked out really well. And Danielle still works for me today. So Danielle has been with me for the long haul. But then the pandemic hit. And so in March 2020, after only working for me for a short amount of time, I said, I don't think you should be coming over to my home to work anymore. And she agreed with me. So Danielle was no longer working for me. So I was back doing everything myself. But at that point, you know, it was early pandemic. Nobody was really doing anything. I had lots of free time. I could handle things. But then my business really shot up. And so that was May 2020 when I did my first weekly kit reformat. And at that point, I'd really been paying attention to what kind of stickers did people use, what stickers did people use from competitors, doing a lot looking at people's spreads that they posted on Instagram and trying to figure out like what is the ideal combinations of stickers that people wanted. So with that reformat, I really increased the number of stickers that I offered and the way that I offered them, kind of how things were bundled together. And with that release, my business that was like the first turning point where I could just see that month, like the difference between April 2020 and May 2020 was huge. So I was really busy. And that was like the first time that I remember I was staying up late. We were going out of town and I had to get all these orders out before we went. So that was the first time I was like staying up late, getting all these orders done. And again, it was really exciting to see so many people interested in this product, because the thing that's fun, it's not just about like hitting these milestones, but it's about like, I create something and people respond to it and people like it. And that is so cool and so exciting. It's such a great feeling. And so it was really exciting to get that response to something that I had made. So that summer, business really started to take off, and it got to the point where I was struggling to handle it myself. And especially when I had my anniversary sale that year, we were leaving for the beach right at the like 2-week mark after the anniversary sale. So I needed to get all the orders out before the beach. And that last week was one where I was like, how many hours can I sleep and get everything done? It was too much. And I was, I think I, got things like finished up at like 4 in the morning the day we left for the beach, and was, really down to the wire on getting things done. I also, this is an aside, but because of like pandemic supply chain issues at that point, I ran out of ink when I was filling the orders. And so at that point too, I had a combination of For a long time, I had a combination of, I held a lot of inventory, but I wasn't ready to ship. So I would have a combination of being able to fill orders from inventory I had, but also needing to make stickers. And I ran out of ink and I could not buy ink locally. I went everywhere. So I ended up, there was a Staples near my parents that had the ink I needed. So my mom went and did curbside pickup at the Staples in Chicago and overnighted it to me. So I had ink to finish those anniversary sale orders. So it was definitely rough. So that really made me see like, okay, I need help again. And so what I did was I bought an extra, like a second set of silhouettes so I could have a set of silhouettes at home. And then I hired Asa, who worked from his home just cutting stickers, and that worked out really well. So I would either go to his house or he would come to my house and we would just exchange printed stickers for cut stickers, and we do that a couple times a week. And so he was working from home for me 20-25 hours a week just cutting stickers, and that worked really well and was a huge burden lifted, because then I was still cutting some stickers, but I didn't have to do nearly as much. Then also at that point, so Danielle had been gone for the summer. She's an engineering major and was doing a co-op, so she would be here for a semester and then co-oping for a semester. So that summer she was co-oping, which is why I didn't hire her back and I hired Asa instead. But Danielle came back in August, so I hired her as well. So I got another set of silhouettes. So I had 3 total, one at Asa's house, one at Danielle's house, and one at my house. And Danielle was cutting stickers at home for me as well. So that was, for a while, I had a really good situation because I had 2 people cutting stickers at home for me, and that was a really huge help. Again, I was still cutting some stickers, but what they were doing was a really, really big help to me. Then I knew this was going to happen because Asa had already graduated college and was saving up money to be able to move and join some friends to get a grown-up job. So he had enough money to move. He got a job where he wanted to. So he left later that fall. So then I was back down to just Danielle working from home for me. So again, things continued to grow and go really well that fall. And at this point though, I kind of ran into like things were getting too big and out of control. And especially because Danielle was leaving again that spring to go do her co-op. And I, again, was like, I don't really know who to hire. Asa was also a college kid from church and I'm friends with his mom. And I didn't really know who else to hire, but I needed somebody else for the spring. And I found someone else. She didn't work out though. She was fine. She cut stickers for me at home, but she just had too much going on and really couldn't commit to me. So she did not work for me for very long. She quit pretty shortly after. And so that's when I kind of took the first break from my shop because I realized I really enjoyed doing this. I don't want to give it up, but this is too much for me to do. At this point, it was before vaccines, so I really didn't feel comfortable having people in my home, and I wasn't sure who to hire. And again, with having people in my home or sending them home with like hundreds of dollars of equipment or $1,000 of equipment once you have the computer and stuff in, I didn't want to just hire some random person off Craigslist. So I was a little bit stuck. So that's when I switched to the pre-sale system for a few months. So with the pre-sale system, I had at the beginning of every month, my shop would open. You could order what you wanted from a small set of kits. Then I would make all the kits and mail them out a few weeks later. So that worked well because I knew exactly how many stickers I needed to make. So it was more a set number of stickers and the volume was much lower than I'd been dealing with before, which is what I needed. So that spring, things were much more chill and low key while I kind of waited to figure out staffing stuff. So then I reopened in May, and at that point when I reopened, I had Danielle working for me again because she was back from her co-op, and I also hired Catherine. And Catherine is the daughter of one of my coworkers, and I'd actually wanted to hire her before when I was looking for someone for the spring, but she hadn't turned 18 yet. And you need a special license to hire minors, and it was more hassle than it was worth for the amount of stuff you have to do. And it didn't work very well for somebody working from home at odd hours because there's a lot of restrictions on which hours minors can work. So it just made sense to wait till Catherine turned 18, which was at the beginning of May. So when I reopened, I had 2 people working for me, and I also got my first graph tech then. So at first I had Catherine and Danielle were both cutting on the silhouettes, but then we got the graph tech up and running. And for a little bit, while we were still working through a bunch of things that we'd already print, we had the silhouettes and the graph tech going, but quickly we switched over to the graph tech. And so I was able to then start training them to do more and more things. So I was able to train them to fill orders and to work on printing and cutting stickers on the graph tech. So they were able to take over and do a lot more work for me. But we still had a lot of work because that lasts, so this is the summer summer of 2021. My business just continued to grow and grow. And so I realized I needed to hire more people. And at this point, the good thing was Catherine had lots of friends who needed jobs. And she had like her friends were the kind of people I wanted to hire. So I ended up hiring 2 of her friends, Caitlin and Janset. Caitlin I hired last summer, and then Janset started, I think, in early fall. And if I'd kept my business going, if I kept growing my business more, I had a couple other of Catherine's friends who were probably going to become hires as well. So I brought them on board, and then I also brought Grant on board in the fall. And Grant was my first full-time employee because I realized that when I went back to work in the fall, I needed somebody to just print and cut all day long. And so that was essentially Grant's job. So the others would come, so like this was fall 2021, Grant would come and he would just print and cut all day. So he would be printing, he'd be running the graph text, he'd be setting up our print and cut files. And so he was just making stickers all day. And then the other employees, Catherine and Danielle, would come and fill orders. And so we were able to get orders out pretty much every day between the 2 of them coming. And which at that point, last fall, the order volume got really high. And for a while we were staying on top of it, but then Danielle had a really hard semester and she needed more time for schoolwork, which of course I'm going to say school comes first. So she needed to cut back on her hours. And so then we didn't have as much coverage for filling orders, and we definitely were not getting things out as fast as I would have liked to, and had a lot of orders piled up. So it wouldn't be uncommon that we'd have a couple hundred orders in our queue waiting to go out at any given time. So things continued to grow. Caitlin and Janset especially too. At this point was before I had my nice guillotine cutter, and we were cutting up all the sheets by hand, and that was taking a huge amount of time. Janset was pretty much working from home like 20 hours a week, just cutting up sheets of stickers and quality checking them. So that was a really big bottleneck, which I now have resolved, which is good. Again, business was great. I mean, the revenue numbers I was hitting were things that I would have never dreamed of getting at. And so I was just really amazed. And then I had a big decision to make, because I found out this was one of those, when I had been setting up my business as an LLC and kind of officially registering things, it had just not occurred to me to get a local business license, because there's no clear checklist for like, these are the things you need to do, because things vary so much depending on where you live. So I thought I had done everything that I needed to. I mean, I even got, once you hit 5 employees, you need to get workers' comp insurance. I did that. Like, there were so many things that I did, but I just had not thought of a local business license. And then we get a newsletter from the city, and it was like, in November, it was like, don't forget to renew your business license for next year. And I was like, oh shoot, I don't have a business license. Okay, I'm gonna go do that. So I go online to apply for a business license, and I find out that you are only allowed to have 1 employee in a home-based business in my town, and there are a lot of restrictions on home-based businesses, actually, how much of your home it can take up. There's issues with parking and traffic. There's a lot of restrictions, and the thing is, you can't cheat this because they can check with the state employment records. So I had a hard choice to make at that point. So either I could scale back and keep it in my home with 1 employee, or I could move the business outside of my house. Also, I should say at this point too, we had thought we would move way earlier. We thought that we'd move like June 2021, and we ended up moving January 2022. So our Fern Creek Stickers was taking over our condo, because we lived in a 3-bedroom condo, not huge, and the stickers just exploded, and the inventory alone was taking up so much space. Like, we had the office upstairs where the business was mostly focused. We ran out of room for inventory there totally. We had tall metal shelves and couldn't fit any more of those in. So we started having additional inventory downstairs on the kitchen table. So like, every time that we filled orders, we had to put all these baskets out on the tables. And then every time when I was like making dinner, I had to take all the baskets off. And so for filling orders, Catherine and Danielle had to keep running up and down the stairs. And so it was chaos. It was taking over our home. So anyway, I had to decide what to do. And there were a lot of decisions, because the biggest one was I just couldn't see having my full-time job and having the business outside of my home. Because I should also say too, I'm forgetting details as I tell this, but last fall, even though I had all this help, Fern Creek was still essentially like a second full-time job for me. And I was pretty consistently staying up until 3 in the morning to do Fern Creek work. And I don't say that to, I don't know, to complain or get pity or to be like, oh, I'm so tough. It was just what it was. And the thing is, I enjoyed it. I mean, having those like late nights, listening to podcasts, listening to music, drinking coffee, doing creative stuff, like I really did enjoy it. And it's what needed to get done. And I was also realizing I was kind of in this, that I was gonna have to make a decision and I wasn't ready to make it yet. So I realized I was gonna need to sacrifice my time and my sleep for a few months while I figured out what I wanted to do long term. So with trying to decide whether or not to move the business out of my home, again, it really was a part of a bigger decision about whether or not I wanted to quit my full-time job. And at this point, I was making enough money from Fern Creek that I could replace my income from my full-time job, and likely once I'd have more time, be able to hire more people, etc., I would definitely be able to surpass my full-time income before too long. But there were a few considerations, and the first one was that there is not a lot of great office space available. We really here, we don't have big office spaces or office buildings with space to rent, so it's kind of random places. And when I was looking, the inventory was really low, and it was mostly like storefronts in strip malls that were available. And the problem with those is you're paying a premium for the location and accessibility, which I didn't need. I really needed something in an industrial park because I'm not gonna have anybody who is just driving up and wanting to shop. And I did find there was one small industrial park that did have space available, and I did go look at the space. It was really the only thing that was what I was looking for. The price was great. It was very affordable and also big enough that I felt like I could grow into it. It was not cute. It was a warehouse. It was climate controlled, but it was a warehouse. And so I did look at that and thought about it, and at the end of the day, I realized that keeping my full-time job was probably the way to go. And it was a hard choice because also with COVID, this is like a whole other thing, but I became pretty disenchanted with my job during COVID. I cannot compare to like K-12 teachers or healthcare workers in terms of the treatment or workload or burnout during the pandemic, but it became clear that faculty were not valued during the pandemic, and I probably shouldn't say too much about it. So I was really kind of like, I love making stickers. I'd rather be making stickers, but it's really hard to say. My job has a lot of really amazing things going for it, even if sometimes the day-to-day is not so much fun. Technically my job is 9 months a year. I'm only paid 9 months a year, but when you add like winter break and spring break in, I'm really working like 8 months a year, and I make decent money for working 8 months a year. I get a pension, and it's a really good pension plan, which again, like who gets a pension today? So again, the amount that I have to save for retirement every month is a lot less than a lot of other jobs. And so there are a lot of really good benefits like that, and the flexibility of my job, and the fact that I have incredible job security. I do predict that there's gonna be a lot of changes in higher ed in the coming years, and I'm pretty safe from that because I'm a tenured college professor. So, you know, if anything, maybe I'll get offered early retirement, but I'm not in fear of losing my job. So there are a lot of really good perks to my job. And the other problem too is once I leave, there's no coming back. And that's one of the weird, unfortunate quirks of academia, is that there's not really good off-ramps and on-ramps. So once you quit a tenured position and do something else, the chances that you're gonna be able to come back to academia are pretty low. And again, especially it's a very competitive hiring environment. And if you don't keep up, a PhD is a wasting asset. If you don't keep up your research, you're not gonna be able to get another job. If, you know, again, I've said this before, but I feel like if I worked pretty much anything else, I probably would have taken a chance at running Fern Creek full time, but it just wasn't the best choice for me. So that's why I had to again scale back my business, but this time knowing it wasn't gonna be a temporary thing, but this is really permanent because I need to keep the business in my house, and I can only have one employee in the house. So the only thing where there's potential for growth in the future is if I could find the right person to hire full-time, then I would be able to grow my business again. And, you know, I'd still definitely have limits on what I could do, but if I found the right full-time person, that would make a difference. So that's a possibility. Danielle will be graduating in December, so I'll have to figure out what I'm going to do once she has graduated. So again, I scaled back. I had a big sale in the beginning of the year to clear out a lot of my inventory, and since then we've been offering more limited numbers of things. And fortunately, I wanted to start off pretty small with what we offered, but I realized that within the time boundaries that I had set for myself, which is spending about 10 hours a week working on Fern Creek, and the time that Danielle had, we could do more because we've gotten a lot more efficient, and there were a few small efficiency things that I hadn't had time or space to fix before, and now we've got resolved. So the business is running more efficiently than it ever has. I'm really happy I've still been able to keep it open. So I don't know what the future of Fern Creek is, you know, going forward. It's something I love doing, and I really want to be able to keep as part of my life, but you know, we'll see. But that's kind of the journey that it's been. Hopefully I didn't forget anything too big in there. So if you have any questions or anything that I forgot, just leave it down below. This was a lot longer than I expected, so thanks for watching through the whole thing. But yeah, that is I guess when you're seeing it, it'll be the day after my shop's 3-year anniversary. So 3 years later, that is the story of my small business.